Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of In-Depth School and Community, a topical show that features issues confronting our schools today in the Concord School District. I'm really excited to bring this show to you. It comes on the heels of a recent school board meeting we had talking about our middle school. So let's meet our distinguished guests. On my far left here is Katie McDonough. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
Katie is a Latin teacher. She teaches at the middle school and the high school. Next to her is Mr. Kriegis Bozeman. He is the assistant principal and former social studies teacher at the high school, as well as football and wrestling coach. And then last but not least, our distinguished principal, Ms. Paulette Fitzgerald, who is in her second year at the helm of Rundlett Middle School. So again, the reason we're all here is to talk about middle school and, where is this middle school going? And maybe we should back up, Paulette, right, and talk about, what is a middle school and where did all that come from?
Right. So I've been to middle school for a very long time, and the opportunity came to me to join Rundlett.
Sure.
And thought that was a great opportunity. And when I arrived, I'm just going to give you a little kind of a story of what happened last year. We had decided for our first year we would just be curious and figure out what we were doing and why we were doing it.
Sure.
Right? The whole thing, everything that we did. Curriculum, instruction, all of that, climate, what are we doing? Kriegis was new as well. We started together. And so towards the end of that, or halfway through that year, we said, it would be great if we brought in the New England League of Middle School. And
stop right there. Explain to our viewers what the New England League of Middle Schools is.
Sure, a great organization that supports middle schools in New England. And so they offer a lot of professional development, a lot of support for middle schools, being a unique age group that we serve.
Yeah, let's speak to that issue of unique age group. So, Kriegis, help us out. What is this unique age group?
And where do I begin, Frank? Absolutely, for sure. What's interesting is that I was educated here in Concord, and I actually attended Rundlett Junior High School years ago, when the grades were grade 7, 8, and 9. So my freshman year of high school was kind of mixed in with the 7th and 8th graders. And then several years ago now, the school had morphed into middle school. Middle school. And so they changed the grades to now 6, 7, and 8. So you're talking they come in at 11, and they leave us around 14. And so in between there, you've got the 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, and if any of you or your viewers think about that time, that's a very interesting time, right? There's a lot of things that are going on in the brain, right? There's a lot of development there. Students are starting to find their identity, which is really cool and really interesting. And there's challenges both, emotionally and socially as well as academically that are very unique to kind of this age and this set. And so what Paulette was saying was that the New England League of Middle Schools, through research and some of the best practices in the country, is able to kind of decide and help to determine what's best for kids, what's best for staff, what's best for a school to really kind of, have a nice nurturing atmosphere for this, this very specific age group. And so, their job was to kind of come in and help kind of guide us to have a really effective school.
No, that's a good point. And Katie, you're in an interesting position because you straddle both worlds. You're here at the high school as well as being at the middle school, right?
Right, sure.
And so you see how the kids mature and grow, and you see sort of a huge difference between the ages of, let's say, 11 and 12 and 16 and 17.
Yeah, and I was actually just thinking about that. Just what is a middle school student and what makes a middle school student so different, I think. And it is this transitional liminal time where they're still a kid, but also they realize, oh wait, like I'm going somewhere. I'm going to the high school next year in 2 years, and it's this really tricky push-pull time. And and then they get to the high school, and I see them mature all the way up to they're going to college now.
So do you find though at the middle school, the age group that you're dealing with, that we say torn. They're torn between sort of identity issues. They're torn between academic issues, and do I really want to spend a lot of time doing that? And they're also torn, I'm certain, with all the friends issues that occur. So, how do you as administrators and teachers balance that? Because they're constantly trying to figure out the whole social thing, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Go ahead, Paulette. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's so interesting when they come in as 11-year-olds and what we know about brain development, what we know about their physical development.
Yes.
And it's this remarkable time. They want to belong. They want us to believe in them. They want us to believe that they are capable. And so we need to be responding in that way. We need to engage them and give them responsibilities, knowing that they still need to be bubble wrapped in care and support. And so I think that's just one of the things that I think about. You said like that pushing back or
Push-pull.
Yeah,
Push-pull.
they push pull.
It's a
So
very
they
cool
want to
phrase.
be independent, but they want adults there with them. You know,
That begs the question. So
Yes.
where are the parents in all this? Because at the elementary level, I mean, they're right there all the time,
Right.
which is great. And then at the high school, I mean, you really don't see them all that often unless it's a major
Right.
issue, right? So what's the balance with parents?
I think it's a transitional time for parents too, actually. And I think I felt that we did parent conferences before Thanksgiving break, and we just
Right.
wrapped them up the first week in December. And I think I felt that with the parents I talked to also is, what is the appropriate amount of support for my student? Because in in elementary school, it's a lot. I
Sure.
mean, they're always checking up, they're
Yeah.
looking through the folders, they're signing all the sheets,
Yeah.
and then in high school, the students tend to be more independent. And so I think it's interesting. I never thought about it because I don't have students in the school system myself, but it's not just a transitional time for the students. The parents, all of a sudden, they're going through this
Yeah.
whole big, they need to know I think they want to know what they can do and what they should be doing. And I felt that at parent
help, how to
conferences.
support, yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
so
appropriate.
almost as if the parent feels I don't want to tread too strongly. Maybe the child wants me to back off and not
Right.
have too much of a presence
Sure.
there. So you're getting some of that as well, where the kid, in a sense, is pushing back.
Sure, and I think it depends on the student too. I
point.
have students I
Good point.
think that are, I mean, they're starting to get into high school habits. They keep track
Right.
of their own homework notebook. They don't
Nice.
need much support
Right.
from home. But then there are the other students who, I think they're more towards the younger side of middle school, maybe mentally just, and they need the support. And I think parents need help knowing where their student is.
That's great. So let's go ahead,
I was
Krigas.
going to say, 'cause- and Katie's right, it's not just the individual student that's so different, but also sometimes time of day. And, it just changes so
Yes,
quickly.
yeah.
And Paulette mentioned about sometimes it's need to be bubble wrapped, sometimes want to be independent. And so
Right.
part of the fun of working in the middle school, working with this population is that, you get to kind of do all of those things with them and help
Sure.
support them where they need. And things
That's
like that.
constantly
It's really kind of
changing.
fun.
It's never
Constantly.
static.
It's like a Swiss
Yeah.
Army knife. You have to be kind of right there. It's really fun. So.
Paul, let's go back to what you started the conversation about, which is, I think you said, who are we?
Yes.
Where are we going?
Yep.
How are we going to get there? So take us down that track a little bit.
Sure. So as we were curious last year and trying to figure out, why we did what we did, we brought in NELMS and decided to do this whole school assessment
Sure.
to figure out what we were doing well and where we could improve. I think in education we are always evolving. I think it's dangerous if we think we've arrived, if
Well
we're
said.
there.
Yeah.
So we're always evolving. I think it's important that we're always reflective, all of those things. And it was, I think, important for the staff to know and for the parents to know what we were doing well. And
So what were we doing well?
oh gosh, we have amazingly dedicated teachers.
Absolutely.
We really do. We have fabulous kids, and we have amazingly supportive parents.
Okay, that's
right?
good. Yeah, great. Good
that's
start.
great.
No
That's
good start.
an
Yep.
amazing start. I think we have some things in place that are working well.
Such as?
We have some our curriculum leaders that are helping to really work on curriculum. We have we had 1 day of advisory. We moved that to 5. So we had some elements of a middle school,
Right.
which I think we were celebrating. This is great. We do have some things. We have some teaming, right? So we have teams, and within our teams we have clusters.
I think you better explain that. So teaming and clusters, folks may not know that.
So we have a large school.
Yeah.
Almost 1,000 kids. How do we make a large school feel small for the students? So at each grade level is divided into clusters.
Okay.
And so our 6th grade has 7 2-person clusters. So students go between their 2 teachers and then they go to their exploratories. 7th and 8th grade have 3 clusters of 4 teachers. So students are working with those 4 teachers in their cluster.
You brought up something that's interesting. Kriegis, help us out. Exploratories. What is that and why do we do it?
Sure. It's our classes that are your non-traditional academics. Physical education, technology education, which is really kind of made the move to some good 21st century learning and some engineering projects.
Yeah.
Our art classes, our visual art classes, our music and performing groups. So it's kind of those classes that students, we expose them all to, so they have to take those classes, and it helps to kind of pique some interest, helps to kind of drive some career potentially and things like that. So and so when, like Ms. Fitzgerald said, once they have their cluster teachers for language arts, math, social studies, what have you, then every day they do get to go and participate and explore some of the sort of non-traditional curriculums. World language is an exploratory for the 7th grade.
7th graders.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, let's talk about that. So what languages are available, and can I switch around? Like maybe in the 6th grade I want to do French, and 7th grade do Spanish, and 8th grade do Latin.
Okay, sure. So right now it's set up so that the 7th graders each 7th grader gets to take each language for 2 weeks.
What's each language?
Great question. German, French, Spanish, and Latin.
No kidding.
Yeah. So they get
Isn't that amazing?
That's really neat. Yeah.
It's so neat, and we have the 4 language teachers who teach it have aligned the curriculum so that they're getting similar vocabulary across each language in the different language.
Nice.
So they can also see
it's analogous.
Exactly, the connections, and especially it's really fun for Latin to Spanish or Latin to French. Because the 2 Romance languages, right? So they really make the connections. But actually, there's a surprising amount of the German words that they are similar across the board as well. So it's a really neat exploratory program.
Wow, wow. And so after they do that, that's in grade 7, you said,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
So how long does that last for?
So that's for a quarter.
A quarter. And then what do I do?
And then in 8th grade is
that's only a quarter. So now what happens in the 2nd quarter?
It's so. In the past, it's been part of the exploratory block. So that means that during the same time that they might have technology education.
I got to switch to something else.
Exactly, so it'll switch to someone else.
So I got the smattering of those languages, right, that you provided for me.
You get a sample to kind of
decide if...
Sampling,
all right,
sure.
Because if in 8th grade, right? You said
Right.
And so in 8th grade, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right, so then in 8th grade, and I mean, I would like to say also, most middle schools don't have 4 languages.
No,
even
I'm
if there's
surprised.
4 at the high school. So it's just so exciting for me as a language teacher to work with the 4 languages. And so in the middle school, so they get the choice in 8th grade, they'll study for the whole year one of the languages, if they so choose, which is aligned with our high school level 1s as well, so they will be ready.
So when I finish 8th grade, instead of taking Latin with you, do I get credit for Latin 1, or is it a half credit? In the old system, it used to be you get a half credit for every year in junior high school of your language.
We have discussed this in the past because other courses that has been available for world language, it's not currently available that you get high school credit.
Okay.
But you can fast track to
a better
Latin
way to phrase the question.
Sure.
So I finished Latin 1 with you. When I go to the high school as a freshman, what am I taking?
Latin 2.
Thank you.
So you are ready to go into Latin 2. So you have the language credit. So you have the prereq to go into the 2nd level.
And that holds true for French, German, and Spanish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very cool.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so that's they can all if they start and have success in a language in the middle school, it gives them the sort of unique opportunity also to go to a level 5 at the high school of language. So a little bit more study than they would get if they had started as a freshman here.
Right, and you do have level 5 students in your Latin program.
Yes, yep. All the languages have level 5 students.
Wow. Do you call it AP or just regular?
We currently just call it, everybody's doing just level 5.
But I can take the AP exam if I want.
You could take the AP exam. Yep.
Wow, nice. All right, Paula, back to you again. So continue with your journey.
Sure. So we know that at Rundlett there had been a number of different administrators over the years. And so as a result of that, and the times changing, we found that Rundlett was a little bit junior high, had a smattering of some high school, and a little bit of middle school. So we were like, oh, okay, this is really interesting. So what can we do to really help Rundlett become a true middle school?
Okay.
So A new
What can we
building.
do?
A new building would help.
Right.
Just had to get that in there. And
Well,
so,
I think for our voters'
Sure.
concerns, that's been voted on, right? That there will be a new building at some point in the
We're
future.
hoping,
Correct.
So we
right.
know that that's going to happen. The question is, what kind of a building is it going to be? So let's talk about that a bit. It could be, I mean, we have a couple of choices, right? It could be just a 7-8 junior high school model. It could be a 6 through 8 middle school, or it could be a 5 through 8, which, a lot of research seems to suggest might be a good way to go.
Right.
So go ahead, talk to
Oh,
us.
I think a 5 through 8 model would be amazing. We would get to have those kids for 4 years in one building. I think of transitions in kids' lives. I think of transitions, just the number of transitions in a day, to have kids in one school for 5, 6, 7, 8. I think that would be awesome. That would give us time to really focus on their developmental needs during that really tricky period of time.
Sure. Now, Kriegis, how would that change your job?
So we would kind of talked about the idea of that dream sort of 5 through 8 middle school, and so whereas right now I currently work across 6th, 7th, and 8th grades
Right.
working with, so I might have an 11-year-old and then a 14-year-old that I need to try to support, whereas if we had like a 5 through 6
I see
lower
where you're
school
going, yeah.
and then a 7th and 8th upper school, then I might be more focused on say 5, 6 to really meet that group as strong, or 7th and 8th, so that would sort of, I think, would be the immediate effect on sort of my group. And during that time, that tricky time, students excel sometimes or slow down. They hit those benchmarks kind of at different places. So if we had like a 5 through 8, we would really be able to support them where they needed to, be throughout that chunk of time.
Yeah, just out of curiosity. So obviously you have a high school background. Why would you? But you said in the example, 5 through 6. If you had given your druthers, would you do 7, 8, or would you do 5, 6?
That is a good question. Depends on the day, Frank. So that's how we go. But each one has its challenges and its excitement. The students who are a little younger have they come to school with a little different perspective.
Sure.
And kind of excited to be and a little bit of a different challenge. And then but the 7th and 8th, right? They're kind of done school a little bit. They're kind of, like you said, wrestling with some social changes potentially. And so I love both, and so I'd be happy with either one.
Yeah,
Equal
challenge.
challenge. It's just a
Yeah.
different, right? It'll just be
Yeah.
a different.
Now, you mentioned
Opportunity.
something that's interesting. We'll ask Katie this question. So you talked about, kids accelerating and then kids kind of slowing down, and so you have this constant movement. How do you, as a classroom teacher, deal with that, Katie?
Boy, I think the key is to stay playful yourself as a classroom teacher.
Sure.
I mean, I think that's the key. You can't ever expect anything to go exactly as you outlined it in your lesson plan or your notes, and just to keep that attitude, because I think you don't know always a student's whole story, and so to try and get stressed out because your plan didn't go the whole way because so-and-so did this or this didn't go as fast as you wanted is just not healthy for anyone in the room. So
You're really touching upon a central issue, and it's not just germane to the middle school. I mean, obviously you can find that in the high school equally well, and certainly at the elementary level too. But the important point about what you're saying is that so many people have this notion that we as teachers have this plan. We planned it out during our planning period.
Sure.
And so we come in and we're all set. We just follow the plan and everything's
Usually how
wonderful.
it goes.
180 days
never
out of the
gone
year. Yeah.
But it's not that way. And I
Right.
think, to have a really productive, engaging classroom, you come in with a general idea of where you want
Yes.
to go and how you want to get there, but you're able to, as you say, play, move with the kids depending upon the issues that they bring up. And you've got various personalities in the classroom. Some are slowing down, some are speeding up, some want to take over, some want to fall back. So you've got to find ways to keep all of those folks engaged at the same time, but being mindful that each of them has different speeds and different interests along the way. So it's not quite as simple as just saying, but here's the plan, I'm all set.
Right. And we're living in this incredible city of Concord. We
Yes.
have an incredible, diverse population. I know the high school has something, they speak something like 30 languages.
Yes,
it's
good point.
It's incredible. And so one of the things that Ms. Fitzgerald and everyone has kind of brought into our school is this idea of meeting students where they're at and what they need, and really try to individualize as much as possible the instruction, the curriculum, the enrichment, the things that they need in support for language or for math. And what's really we're very fortunate about is we do have an amazing building of teachers and professionals who are invested in these kids and invested in meeting them where they're at, and whether it's a social intervention that they need to try and improve them there, or a math acceleration because they're doing math at a high school level. It doesn't matter. Our teachers want the best for them where they're at, and are willing to put in that extra effort to kind of get there, and that's the the best asset we have.
That's well said, Krieg. It's really well said. And then you have the other issue that you have to deal with, like Katie might fall into this category, where she's coming through the middle school and she doesn't quite connect up with certain people, right? And as time goes on, she falls further and further back, and so then the question is, who's going to catch her? Now, what I'm leading to is, Mike Reardon wants to put in a full-blown advisory program at the high school. He really feels that every kid should have an advisory, whether there's an actual curriculum or not, as long as they're face-to-face with that teacher and they know that's a go-to person. So what are you guys doing in that regard at the middle school so people like Katie won't fall through the cracks?
Sorry, Katie. I feel like
it's always the last.
You answered it with your question. We certainly, like Ms. Fitzgerald said, we did implement advisory for 5 days a week this year, as it was originally just 1 day a week last year. So every student does have an advisor that they do meet with every single day at the end of the day for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and they have an opportunity to. Sometimes there might be a curriculum about some social emotional learning, or something that's going to help benefit them in social situations. And sometimes, just like what you said, it might just be a chat. It might just be, hey, what's going on? Let's talk about some issues that are out there. And it really helps to kind of break down some barriers with kids. Provide a good relationship. And all of our staff does a wonderful job, like I said. And everyone treats every kid as if they're theirs, right? So I don't have to say that, but
great.
Like it's not just my student in math class, but everyone in the hall feels like they're part of our school, which is really cool, I think. So.
Well, you're speaking about something else that's intrinsic to really great schools, and that is this ethos of caring and concern, that you can somehow cultivate this sense of being within the school where everybody feels like they're a part of something. And I have pride. No, back to Katie. So she has pride and ownership of being a part of the school. She has pride and ownership in knowing that she has friends, she has teachers, she has other adults who are there to support her. So there's this sense of belonging, which is huge. And when you don't have that, when you have sort of compartmentalization, it's very easy for people like her to, again, fall through the cracks. But more importantly is there's no connection. There's no emotional connection to a greater good, if you will, in terms of, but you could go here and you could go there. And here are some opportunities that perhaps you didn't realize existed. I mean, go ahead.
Which will also benefit a student when an obstacle shows up, right? And it's enough to motivate you to do well. But then, man, when those tough times hit, knowing the lessons that Katie's advisor might have got, or Katie's connected person, right? She'll be able to kind of overcome some of those obstacles, we think. So.
Right, and so just to tie into all of this, one of the things that we're starting to do this year is to really look at all of the data that we have on each student. So we started using a diagnostic universal screener that's giving us one data point of how our kids are doing in reading and math. Now we also have other data. We have classroom data, their classroom performance. We also have attendance data. We also have discipline data, all of those things. And all of that creates a story about each child. So as you said, if a student is struggling or they're going up above and beyond, then we can say, okay, let's look at the story. Let's look at the journey they've been on, and what can we do to support whatever it is that they need, whatever it is that they're
you touched upon
displaying.
something else I'm sure you can address, Kriegis, and that is, we have all these things in place, and sometimes things don't happen the way they should. Maybe there's a breakdown in the family unit. Maybe there's a breakdown in the school in terms of an issue that may have occurred. And so you end up in these issues of attendance and discipline. So how do we look at, discipline and attendance from the point of view of, well, the handbook says,
Sure.
so therefore it's 3 days detention, right? Do you move from that to a point of, we'll pick on Katie again, how do we, sorry.
You're a good example for us, Katie.
How do we help her to come to school more often? How do we help her not to be in a cat fight in the cafeteria or something like that?
Yeah, so it's we're really trying to make a large push to try to do just what you said, not necessarily just look at that immediate incident and sort of bring down that hammer right at that moment, but what was some of the factors that caused us to lead up to this? What were some of the reasons for the behavior, the reasons for the attendance, or the reasons for some of these, and in collaboration with some local organizations and collaborations with our school counselors, our school psychologists. We look at that story that Ms. Fitzgerald was talking about, and we try to ask questions of families. We include families in all these things, and not for a sense of, this is not good for your student, but how can we help and how can we support? I hear the word support in our school so much because that's really what we're there to do. And it was, if a student is seeing an obstacle that's preventing them from coming to school or for succeeding in class, what is that obstacle, and what can we as a school or as a team of teachers do to try and help that and try to address that, and that's really what the philosophy is, to try and help that student, because that's what's going to help get them through, not let them slip through the cracks.
That all sounds great. I mean, it sounds really great, but you and I have had conversations, and so one of the problems we have is making sure we have all those pieces in place to be able to do all those things, right?
Right.
So what are some of the things you're looking for down the road?
Right. So our 3 goals as a result of the NELMS assessment and also a grant that we had received, our leadership teams met this summer, and we we're zeroing in on 3 areas, zoning in. One is data, and I already spoke to that, how we're using data. The other is building multi-tiered systems of support, both academic and behavior and safety. But just to go back to our multi-tiered systems of support, what supports are available for all students? So advisory is one thing that is available for all students. As students are demonstrating different needs, then we go to our tier 2, what's available there for those kids, and then tier 3. So that's something that we're in the process of building right now.
Do you need other professionals to help you to do that?
We always need other professionals to help us.
We'll always love help, right?
Right, we are always looking for more help. Yes, in terms of social worker, things like that. As we're
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is, as you're growing and you're looking to this 5 through 8 potential model, I mean, and you have these plans in play, you may need to look at restructuring sort of the professional community that you have. And so maybe that means you need another special ed person. Maybe it means another guidance counselor. And I'm making this up, but there are other professionals that you're going to need at some point to bring about all these great and wonderful things that you talked about.
Yes, did you get my wish list? I'm not sure, because we have kind of a list. And also looking at the resources that we do have and
recalibrating them.
Right, realigning as needed. So I think that's it's part of the exciting work.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Katie, talk to us about high school versus middle school in terms of what your, how do I phrase this? What do you see as the biggest change as you see the kids going from the middle school to the high school?
I think the independence, like we talked about earlier, students during middle school are trying to sort of gain that independence, and I think the big difference is once they get to high school, I think they have more of that. I mean,
so if you do your job right, as a middle school, you're preparing those kids for that eventuality. I think as Krieger said,
to make good choices,
to be independent, to be able to overcome obstacles, because there has to be a certain resiliency, right? Because you're going to face issues that confront you. How do you deal with those? Do you shut down, or do you find the means to kind of get around them or deal with them? So I mean, I think all of this points to that independence that you're trying to create for the child as he or she moves to the high school. And that would be great.
Those executive functioning skills.
Exactly.
And social emotional.
So the middle school is a very important, part of that whole process. And the better you guys can do all that, the more successful that individual is going to be.
100%.
Yep.
Well, I want to thank you all for this. This is great. I
Thanks.
hope
This
our
was fun.
viewers
Thank
you.
enjoy the middle school and
Yeah.
get a chance to come over and see the great and exciting things you folks do,
wonderful,
because it
for sure.
really is great. And thank you so much for coming. I
Oh, thank you
appreciate
for
it.
inviting us.
Okay,
It's been
all
great.
right. Thank you.